Good evening. Welcome to this special Good Friday edition of APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. Our show tonight chronicles the Pope's apology in Rome. If you or a loved one is experiencing difficulties, you can call the Indian Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419. And now here's Tina House with the first in a series of stories.
It's a historic day and years in the making, but finally, Métis leaders and residential school survivors from Canada are here in Rome, Italy, to tell their truth about what happened at residential schools to their people. Just like the First Nations and Inuit people, Métis children were also forcibly taken from their homes and put into residential schools, except in many cases, those Métis children were even more discriminated against because of their mixed race. But for Métis National President Cassidy Caron, today is about creating a new beginning and hopefully start to heal from what many say is a crime against humanity.
We spent some time last night with our delegation just meeting one last time before we go into the meeting, and had some really great conversations with our survivors who will be leading our meeting today. They will be front and center. Their voices will be elevated throughout this entire day, and so we're really looking forward to bringing our elders in there and really upholding them, taking care of them, and sharing the stories of the Métis Nation and the experiences of residential schools that our Métis children suffered. We really hope that the Pope listens and hears and acknowledges this pain today.
The day started with a ceremonial event with the Métis National Council as they showcased a pair of red moccasins that they will be presenting to the Pope, created by Métis delegate and artist Mitch Case. The gift was designed with the Pope's colors in the beading, along with the Métis Nation's colors. The red elk hide represent the red shoes that the Pope normally wears. He also created this one-of-a-kind beaded jacket for the Métis National Council president to wear to the meeting with Pope Francis. However, Case says he is a bit apprehensive of the meeting.
The church has a long way to walk before we could possibly forgive them for what they did. But if he is willing to walk with us, then we'll be willing to walk with him.
Today is the day that the Church walks in reconciliation with Indigenous leaders and survivors as they hope to find some healing and justice from the many years of abuses suffered by so many children that were locked inside of these institutions, and I won't call them schools. Behind me here are some of the archbishops that have gathered, and also bishops from Canada that are joining Indigenous leaders today.
There seems to be a good spirit here, a good spirit of anticipation, and we'll just see how it all unfolds now. We're about to head off with some of the Métis members and some of the Inuit later this morning, and they'll have a chance to meet the Pope, and we'll see how that goes.
Is this your opportunity to also apologize to the people that went to residential school in your region?
We've done that. So, as you may know, in Canada, that's happened many, many times since the early 90s.
As Archbishop, are you willing to go further and not just say sorry, but actually launch investigations into the abuses done to Indigenous people in Alberta?
I'm happy to cooperate with anything, any process that will help people tell their story. Right? That seems to be the key thing. So if there were ever an investigation launched, we'd cooperate, obviously.
And after a half-hour meeting with the Pope, the Métis delegation walked out of the Vatican. 85-year-old Angie Crier says the meeting was a long time coming, and she wanted the Pope to know that despite everything that happened, it didn't break her spirit.
We're stronger now, and we help each other, we support each other, and one thing we have now is our pride. They did not break us. We're still here, and we intend to live here forever. And we're going to help us work with us, which is a big drive. For us, it's awesome.
The Inuit delegation chose not to participate in an interview for this story. Tina House, APTN National News, Rome.
And anticipation grew as the trip progressed. Here's Tina House.
It's all led up to this moment as survivors and leaders gathered in Rome to meet the Pope at the Vatican. For the Métis delegation, 3 residential school survivors were able to share their stories with him personally and tell him how the abuse they suffered has deeply affected their lives and the lives of their children and grandchildren.
But those 3 survivors being representative of and emblematic of many, many, many more at home. And I cannot say enough about Angie and Anne and Emile and how incredibly I have 3 new, never mind Marvel and their universe, those superheroes are right there in that room.
And Métis National Council President Karen says that the real action the delegation calls upon is an apology on Turtle Island when he visits Canada in the near future. And then there is the important issue of residential school records that have not been released from the church.
So we want unfettered access to those records. We also want access to our cultural artifacts that are held here in Rome and at the Vatican. Those artifacts tell a story about our communities. Those are our history. In reconciliation, we talked about an apology and that acknowledgement. We've heard from our survivors that many of them need that to move forward.
Alfredo Chirelli has worked in St. Peter's Square for over 40 years, selling rosaries and holy water. He found out about the horrors at Canadian residential schools on television in Italy.
It broke my heart to be. I saw that if you see them, I have a problem for all people, but for the children more. It broke my heart because I am father, I am grandfather, I have the children. I think you go in the school, I have the problem for the priest, for the professor. I don't know if my relation, I don't know. I cry for the baby, for the children.
We have done the difficult work of preparing for our journey, for our conversation with the Pope. We have done the work of translating our words to those that he would understand. And now it is his turn to join us in that work. He and Catholics around the world must now do the work of translating the words that we have spoken today and will continue to speak from their heads into their hearts and ultimately into real action.
The Inuit delegation met with the Pope after the Métis National Council.
There were a number of conversations about faith and about the ongoing presence of the Catholic Church in Inuit Nunangat. There was a lot of conversation about residential schools and the negative impacts of residential schools on Inuit and the intergenerational trauma aspect of residential schools.
Obed also said that they requested that the Pope intervene in the case of former priest Johannes Revoir, who's wanted for sex crimes he allegedly committed in the 1960s in Nunavut. In 1993, he fled to France, which does not have an extradition order with Canada. And just last month, RCMP in Nunavut issued an arrest warrant for him.
It is such a heartbreaking reality that some people who should have been brought to justice decades ago have not seen justice, and those who have been abused and those victims have sometimes died before they have seen justice.
Since the press conference, the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate has requested a meeting in Rome with President Nathan Obed regarding Johannes Revoir. We will bring you more updates on that story later this week. Tina House, APTN National News, Rome.
Now, survivors and youth met with Pope Francis on March 31st. Here's Tina with that story.
As drummers sang the Coast Salish anthem of Chief Jan George, leaders and residential school survivors gathered outside their hotel to make their way to the Vatican. Cookbee Roseanne Casimir from Kamloops to Sequepum will be talking directly to Pope Francis.
We started today off with ceremony and had some much-needed grounding, some song, and, some hugs and blessings from my family from back home, British Columbia, and connecting here with my family that I'm going to the Vatican with as well. And I feel good about this journey that I'm taking and the messages that I'll be delivering.
For Vice Chief David Pratt from Saskatchewan, he says the mandate for this meeting is clear.
We're here to give a message to the Pope and the Catholic Church that, number one, they have to apologize, that to recognize, what they've done to our people as a result of that federal government policy, but number two, to share with us the records that they have, not only in Canada, but here in the Vatican.
And as they boarded the bus to go to the Vatican, we ran into Lauren Green from Musqueam First Nation.
I'm overwhelmed with joy.
And what do you hope from today's meeting?
For us to move forward, to be able to move forward. The apology would mean a lot for our people.
And after a 2-hour meeting, the delegation walked through St. Peter's Square, led by former National Chief Phil Fontaine and National Dene Chief Jerry Antoine.
For all that he heard today and probably heard with the Métis and Inuit delegations about the horrible experience of too many of our people that attended residential schools. He heard about the doctrine of discovery and our issues with that, the papal bulls. He heard about the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation, the 94 calls to action, the principles of reconciliation. Yes, he was given a plate full of issues that are of critical importance and concern for our people.
For Grand Chief Willie Littlechild, he spent 14 years in 3 different residential schools, and he believes what happened here in Rome this week is a giant step forward in healing.
I spent 14 years of my life in 3 different residential schools. Tomorrow is my birthday, and the gift we received today, or I received today, is a good day. That tomorrow will be the first day of reconciliation.
Despite not getting the apology during this latest meeting with the Pope, he asked for a private encounter with the core delegation that he met with this week, which will take place after the general audience with the entire delegation tomorrow. Tina House, APTN National News, Rome.
Now there is much more to come with the Vatican visit. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this Good Friday edition of APTN National News. Cookbee Roseanne Casimir spoke to Tina House in Rome about what she was looking for in the meeting with the Pope. Here's that conversation.
With the Métis and the Inuit delegations meeting earlier this week with Pope Francis, next up is the Assembly of First Nations. Joining me is Cookbee Casimir. Cookbee, tell me what you're going to say to the Pope when you get to meet him.
So yes, tomorrow I'm looking forward to having the encounter with the Holy See, with Pope Francis himself, along with the delegates from the AFN. And I know that we're going to be delivering messages on behalf of our people throughout the nation and from our home communities. And, we're hoping that he really takes that time and that opportunity to really hear what we're saying, the messages that we're passing on from our people, and making some commitments towards those steps towards reconciliation, and also meeting, with communities who've had unmarked graves. And I will be inviting him to come to Schwabach as well.
Cookbee, I'm actually wearing a cape right now designed by BC designer Yolanda Skelton. It actually represents 215 moccasins representing the unmarked graves found in your territory. When the announcement came out of that discovery, it was shockwaves around the world. What has happened since then? Have you been able to repair your relationship with the federal government and maybe even the churches since that discovery?
Since the heart-wrenching news that we shared with the world on May 27th, a lot has happened since then. We've had several discussions and with the provincial government as well as the federal government when it came to seeking the records that we need to, start looking for answers on behalf of our people for, the children that didn't make it home. And so we have been able to get some funding to support us in those steps moving forward. We've also have a church located on our reserve that we've been protecting. There's been several churches right across Turtle Island that had succumbed to fire, and our elders built our church, so it's something that we wanted to ensure was protected. You know, this year is just, it's like a Band-Aid off an old wound. And so there's a lot of mixed reactions. And, you know, moving forward, we know that it's going to be a long process and what that journey is going to look like with the Catholic Church.
What are some of the demands that you're going to put forth to the Pope tomorrow when you get to see him?
All of us will be relaying messages. And I know that tomorrow, after we meet with Pope Francis, we'll be sharing, you know, those key messages as well through the statement with Regional Chief Gerald Antoine.
Okay. I mean, many people at home are saying, you know, why travel all the way to Rome? I mean, why not wait for him to come to Canada? Why go to him? Will we get an apology or not? Are you hoping for an apology tomorrow?
I am not expecting an apology tomorrow, and I would not accept one tomorrow either. Because for myself, I'm here delivering messages on behalf of our people, and I really want him to come to Turtle Island, come to Canada, touch the soil of Canada, reach out to our survivors, and to visit our home communities who've had residential schools. And with the Commons de Schwebmick, we have one of the largest in Canada, run by the Roman Catholic Church. And I think it would be very fitting and very suitable to be able to address all those that have been impacted by Kamloops Indian Residential School.
Is one of the things you're going to talk to the Pope about launching investigations into so many of the cases of these predators that preyed on our children, our Indigenous children especially?
We have a long road ahead. We are definitely at the very beginning when it comes to looking at those investigative steps moving forward. There needs to be accountability. Right now, it's about truth-telling, and it's about accountability from the Roman Catholic Church, and to start implementing those calls to action within the Truth and Reconciliation.
Can you give us an idea of who will be going into the meeting with you?
We have survivors, we have elders, we have Grand Chiefs, we have regional chiefs, we also have cookbies, and we also have youth representatives right across Canada who will be, you know, delivering messages.
Amazing. Cookbee Casimir, thank you for being such an incredible leader for our people. Thank you so much, and good luck with your meeting. Back to you in studio.
We need to take one final break, but coming up, the historic day arrives. Welcome back. The day of the historic apology finally arrived. April the 1st, 2022. Pope Francis finally apologized for the Church's role in the horrific abuse at residential schools. Here's Tina House with that story.
As over 200 delegates gathered at the Vatican for a final audience with the Holy See, emotions were high as they awaited to see if all the testimony from survivors and presentations from leaders made an impact on the Pope. Fred Kelly was the first to do a prayer.
Holy Father, may the Creator of the Great Spirit bless us today as we meet, that we can walk into the future aware that we must allow and follow the 7 laws of creation, and so that we can live not only in peace and harmony, but in the meantime that we can find that reconciliation and the healing.
And after the prayers were spoken, the Pope finally said the words many have been waiting for.
For the deplorable conduct of these members of the Catholic Church,
e vorrei dirvi di tutto cuore sono molto addolorato.
I ask for God's forgiveness, and I want to say to you with all my heart, I am very sorry.
Since the late 1800s, residential schools were established in Canada, Over 150,000 Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their homes. Their parents faced jail time if they tried to stop the removal of their children, and oftentimes did not even know where they were. And meanwhile, many of those children suffered terrible abuses that left them scarred for life, and for others, they just never made it home. And here in Rome, the historic meetings between Pope Francis and the Indigenous delegation, the leadership here says this week has laid down a path to walk forward in reconciliation.
And so our message to the world is that we are all in this together. We're human beings. Let's work together to humanize the way we need to with Mother Earth.
For Métis National Council President Cassidy Caron, she says it was an emotional time listening to that long-awaited apology.
I truly felt the sincerity in Pope Francis's words. I felt that he truly translated the truths that we all shared this week from his head into his heart.
For the Tecamlis-Tissagwepam, that confirmed discovery of 215 hidden graves of children really intensified the urgency for the Catholic Church to admit wrongdoing and begin to make amends like what was done today. If those little ones were here today to hear that word sorry, what do you think that they would be feeling?
I think if those little ones were here today to hear those words that came from him, I think would be a step in that right direction. But I think that it's really important also for those parents. So to me, it's going to be something that's extremely important and gives hope to those little ones as well, to know that he is doing those right steps.
And over in St. Peter's Square, powwow dancers and singers performed in celebration of this new path that's been forged, one that holds promise for a new beginning and a chance at healing. And with that long-awaited apology here in Rome, Pope Francis has now promised to come to Canada in July to officially apologize to Indigenous people in Canada. Tina House, APTN National News, Rome.
That's all we have time for tonight on APTN National News. We'll see you all again very soon.